So, hi James, and welcome to Whiskytower TV.
Nice to speak to you.
Thank you. And nice to speak to you too. Would you like to introduce yourself to our viewers? Who you are?
I'm James MacTaggart. I'm the production and operations director at Arran Distillers. I was a distillery manager for a couple of years till I moved into this role. So I started I'll start at the very beginning when how I got into the whisky industry. I left school when I was 15, went a job as an apprentice electrician or radio TV engineer, and then when I was there for about 2 years, and then I'm watching you guys changing things a wee bit here. And then after 2 years, the person I was an apprentice with left the island, and I was in office for 5 years, and then when I was James McCall, who is basically the office distillery, was retiring, and Harry Coburn was the manager, and Harry approached me to say was interested in taking on the job as office manager because they were looking at introducing some computing into the office. But between me being offered that job and the job starting, they decided they would not do that at that stage. So Harry offered me a job in the distillery, and that's how I got into Bowmore Distillery and into distilling. I mean, at that time, people seen the distilleries as a well-paid job rather than a career, which most people see it today as a career. But I mean, when I started the marshman, there was a joiner, a bricklayer, and a baker mashing eggs, and then in the still house there was an ex-farm worker and 2 ex-butchers. So you can see the diversity and the type of people that work in the distilleries at that time.
And what year was that, James?
What year was that? That was a good question. That would be 75, 76.
Okay.
75, 76.
So you 45 years ago.
Yep. So I was about 30 years in Bowmore, and I went through all from warehousing, malting, and I said to various people, when you're in, if you're looking for great experience in a whisky and producing whisky, you need to learn the malting process. And I was very lucky at Bowmore that there's 4 maltings at Bowmore, and I spent a couple of years in there understanding, steeping the barley, laying down the barley in the floor, 6 or 7 day germination program, and then you're sort of drying it, and then peat firing and all. It's a great experience to see how it's done like that. Mm-hmm. Whereas there's a lot of distillery managers don't get that experience because they don't see that, because there are very, very few distilleries in Scotland. I think it's only about 4 or 5 distilleries actually do that now. Mm-hmm. So I was at Bowmore for 30 odd years. Then one night I was a senior operator at Bowmore. I got a phone call from Jim McEwen, who was at Bradley at the time, was interested in a manager's job in Arran. So he gave me the phone number. I phoned Douglas Davison, who was the managing director there at the time. I met him 2 weeks after that at Glasgow Airport, where he offered me the job, and that in 2007 I moved to Arran. Oh. And it was a great challenge for me to go to Arran because it was a small independent company where I was very, very lucky in the first year, just over a year, I became a director of the company. And there's only 5 directors in the company. So I was able to put my own impact on the company and what I thought where the company should be going, where the production should be going. So the input I had into growing Arran to where it is today was, it was enjoyable and a great experience for me. Thoroughly enjoyed that. Yeah. So that's basically a quick run through where I started in the whisky industry and where I am today.
Yeah, and today, how do a normal day look like for you today? What do you do on a normal day?
I've now stepped back from the day-to-day. David Livingston, who used to be the manager or the assistant manager at Lafroig, then moved to I don't know who, the new distillery there. We've taken David on as the distillery manager at Lochranza, and Graham Ormond is now the distillery manager down at the new distillery at Lag. So I'm basically just overseeing it now. So on a day-to-day basis, the boys are only coming up. Basically, they're coming to me with problems more than anything else. So I'm a problem solver more than anything else these days. So I'm working 2 days at home 1 week, and then I'm in Arran 3 days the following week. So I'm also still very much responsible for the blending and getting the spirit ready to go for bottling.
Okay.
That's my sort of, you know, on a day-to-day basis. That's basically what I'm doing.
Okay.
What is the most important aspect of your job, you think?
The most important my job at the moment, I say, is preparing the spirit for bottling. At the moment, that's what my job is, and just overseeing what the boys are doing at the distilleries as well, just solving problems with them. Because, I mean, I've already said in 2007, when I said to other people, in 2007 when I moved to Arran, the new mix spirit had already been decided what it was going to be. The cut-off points had been decided, and that had been running for about 12 years before I went to Arran. So it was very important that wasn't touched, because if you start interfering with that and changing that, it would be many years before you knew whether you were doing the right thing or not. So it was 12 years in, the new spirit was good, the spirit that was there already was maturing well, so there was nothing really I had to touch. But, you know, one of the enjoyable things for me in Arran was when we decided that we would add another 2 stills to Lochranza. And it was decided we need to up the production capacity of Lochranza. So we put another 2 stills in there. Went from 2 stills to 4 stills. I was involved in designing and everything and that. We didn't bring in an outside person, because with 30 odd years experience in the whisky industry, I knew exactly what we were looking for and what we had to do. And for Forsyth, who had, you know, the coppersmith, they had the original design for the stills. So basically they were only making two wash stills, 2 spirit stills, exactly the same as what the stills were before. So Andy here was one of the first persons to taste the new spirit after we changed from 2 stills to 4 stills, and he couldn't tell the difference between the old new spirit and the new spirit. So we did
excellent.
A very, very, very good job doing that.
Yes.
And then the other thing is that the Lag distillery itself, I thoroughly enjoyed because we were starting from scratch there. That was just a greenfield site. So I had a huge, I was responsible for the design of the stills and all that, and what plant was going in and how the plant was going to work and all that. That was most enjoyable too. So I think one of the things you've got to do, if you're going to be a distillery manager, what you've got to do is, one of the main things you've got to do is understand what your plant can produce.
Yeah.
You've got to understand your plant and what it's capable of producing.
Yeah.
You don't just put something in there and hope for the best. You've got to understand what it's going to do for you.
Yeah.
You have 2 distilleries on Arran. You have Lochranza and you have Lag. Tell us about the difference. As I understand it, Lochranza make unpeated and Lag makes peated. Is that correct?
That's correct. We were making a peated spirit at Lochranza for maybe about 2 months of the year. Out of the 12 months, we did a peated. We did a lightly peated and a heavily peated spirit. But we decided that the company decided we needed something different. We needed a distillery that was going to only be recognised as making a peated spirit. Yeah. So that's why Lag was built, to make purely peated spirit. Lochranza to be seen as producing an unpeated spirit. So we had to split it up that way, and we're producing an excellent peated spirit down at Lochranza. Anywhere between the malts coming in at anything between 40 and 50 ppm.
Okay.
So it's in the region of a heavily peated spirit.
Yeah.
And the plant down there is set up in such a way that it encourages the flavours that you would prefer in a heavy peated spirit. It's almost antithetical to Lochranza. Pretty much everything is opposite. So at Lochranza there's small stills, at Lag the stills are very large.
Oh, okay.
The line arms at Lochranza are horizontal. Down at Lag they're very, very steeply declined. So you're making a heavier spirit there. Even back to the mash at Lochranza is not raked. Down at Lag we do rake the mash to give you heavier, more nutty characters, and the fermentation's much longer. So they're almost completely opposite in the way that they work.
Okay. And another question, can we expected a blended malt between the two?
With the malt from both distilleries?
From both.
Andy's got the answer to this. I'll leave Andy to tell you about this one.
Okay, well, the answer in the short term would be no. I think we have to concern ourselves mostly with making sure that the Lag single malt gets a good start and people understand the values of that distillery and how that runs alongside Lochranza as two separate entities. And I think to immediately release a blended malt would perhaps muddy the water slightly, albeit being a sort of experimental and independent company by nature. Of course, we don't rule it out for the future. That's something that we have within our power. Owning two distilleries, it would be quite tempting to do something like that.
Of course.
And it actually made the news here, but I'm not sure if it reached your shores or not. But during lockdown, after the COVID-19 disaster, both distilleries, for obvious reasons, shut down for a few weeks. So we weren't producing any spirit at either place for a number of weeks. And then we decided that once both distilleries opened back up again, the first runs of new make from each place would be brought together.
Okay.
So
exciting.
With this sort of blended at birth type project. So what we did was we brought the new make in equal parts, 50-50, together from Lochranza and Lag, and filled it into various cask types, first and second fill sherries and some bourbons. And that is going to be a very interesting product in years to come. And as far as we are aware, we're ready to be corrected, but as far as we are aware, that's not been done. So it has been done with malt and grain up at the likes of Lochside and at Ben Nevis when the distillery had both types of still. But in terms of new make being mixed, we're waiting to be told otherwise, but it's certainly a first for us. So we're quite interested to see how that will develop, and the whiskey will be denominated as a blended malt when it is released. But that's more of an experimental thing.
Yeah. So not too bad a question we asked.
we dug up an interesting answer to that one.
Yeah, certainly did. How would you describe the house style of Lochranza versus the Lag? In your own words.
The house style.
Yeah.
The spirit quality.
Oh,
yeah.
I mean, I'll let Andy answer that, because Andy's more at he's a salesman here, so he'll give you a
James, the gentlemen are interested in the production angle, I'm sure.
Yeah.
I mean, well, guys, why don't we spin the question back to you? What do you think the house style of Lochranza is?
To me, Lochranza is very heavy on the apple taste.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, you're not the first people to say that. It's quite an
fruity
fruit.
Yeah.
Forwards.
Green apples, I say.
There's when I first started working at the company, the first thing that anybody does when they start work here is go and make whiskey on Arran. You have to go there and you have to spend some time in the distillery and be involved in the process. And I remember one of the guys, Graham Omond, who's actually now the manager at Lag. He was on shift at Lochranza when I did my stint, and one of the things he said to me was that the wash and this new spirit have a very strong whiff of fresh pineapple. And that is something that I still get today. When you walk through the distillery, you get this tropical fruit character, which by the time it gets to your glass as a whiskey, it's maybe more going towards the general tropical fruit type character, especially in our 10-year-old and things like that. But it's something that's there from the outset. Down at Lag, it's the opposite. It's really heavy, really earthy. and sort of smells of the outdoors and a bit farmyard-like. So yeah, two very different styles. Obviously, we're still to see what the lag spirit shows us as a whiskey.
Yeah.
But as a spirit, we can see that it's highly different from Lochranza, and with the differences in the equipment, that's hardly surprising. Would you say that's a fair analysis, James?
It is. It's something that was strange that happened at Lag is that when you're making a peated spirit, you like to bring sort of your final cut down to, down to about 61%.
Yeah.
So you've got some of the faintiness in the peated spirit. Yeah. But at Lag, it never happened because we found that there's too many off notes when we went down as far as that. So basically, the Lag spirit is stopping at 63%. We'd only taken it down to about 63% because between 63 and 61 we were getting off notes.
Okay.
But a Bowmore it comes down to 61 without these off notes. But Lag, I mean, it's quite interesting. One of the things that I've seen when Rose Isle, the new, the big Diageo distillery was being built, the project manager at the time was asked on the BBC News. It was a news item. He was asked, "What type of spirit are you going to produce at Rose Isle?" And he says, "Well, I'll tell you once the stills start running." And he was very truthful there, because he could quite easily have given a big spin about all this fancy spirit and everything he's going to do. But he was actually very truthful. He said, "We won't know till the stills are running." And that's what we found at Lag. But the idea was we wanted to get down to 61 to get that faintiness into the peated spirit, but there's too many off notes there. We couldn't do it.
Interesting.
I remember that. I was there at the time. I was there that day when that was happening, and I remember tasting the samples off the still, and it wasn't working out the way that we thought it would down to that level. You can still achieve a very highly peated spirit by cutting at 63. You just have to run the still a bit faster.
Okay.
Yeah. We have in our glass before us here the Arran 18-year-old and the Bodega Sherry, which now are available at our
Systembolaget.
Systembolaget in Sweden.
I know all about Systembolaget.
Could you describe them to us? What type of casks and maybe the age of the Bodega?
The Bodega is a 7-year-old spirit.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the 18-year-old is 50%, is fully matured, 50% in fresh bourbons and 50% in hoggies. So it's a mix of both.
Yeah.
But the Bodega is matured in first barrel sherry hogsheads, 7-year-old.
And the Bodega is new in your porridge.
How do you feel about the Bodega? Because it's a 7-year-old spirit. It's quite a young spirit. What's your thoughts on it?
I think it's fresh in some strange way, and you can certainly notice the appleness of Arran.
The fruitiness is there, and I love that it's not too heavy on the sherry part. It makes me happy. The apples is still there.
You can taste and smell the heart and soul of the distillery.
Yeah.
That's a very nice comment, thank you. That's something that we always try for, and we're very lucky that the distillery character at Arran is so strong.
Yeah.
The DNA is so strong. We find that if a whiskey is 7 years old or 25 years old, the personality of Arran is always present.
Yeah, it is. True.
And in the 18-year-old as well. You have recently redesigned your bottles for your range. How has the new design been received so far?
Well, Andy's going to reply to this one because he's in that side of it more than I am.
Yeah, I look after the world market, so I see reaction to that more than James might, and I have to say that the reaction to the new bottles has been fantastic. People have been very, very complimentary about it. It's always a really nerve-wracking thing to do, to redesign your packaging, and all too often on social media we notice that when whiskey companies redesign their packaging, they're opening themselves up to big criticism. Often people are quite harsh about the look of a new bottle, but with our redesign, I was going to say we were really lucky. Maybe it wasn't so lucky. We just we put a lot of effort into it, and really a lot of it was about a 2-year process. It was really a journey of rediscovery for us, because at our company we're all very clear on what our ethos is and our morals and our principles in terms of making whiskey, and we really had the chance to translate that into a physical bottle, and that's something that we had never done before. So the previous bottle had been used for a long time, and it had, like, over the years, it had a new label, it had a new cork, it had a new capsule, maybe a new box. So we kind of updated and updated and updated, but the time was overdue to really start that process from nothing and show people with a bottle what Arran means. And it's quite an abstract concept. You try to think about how on earth do you convey principles through a bottle, but this is what we've had to try to do.
Yeah.
So
I think it's very modern. The same time, it talks to me like it have classy. What is it?
High class.
High class. Yes.
Yeah.
High class whiskey in a high class bottle with a high class design. Yes.
Oh, that's nice. Thank you. That's really, really good to hear. If you notice on the front of the bottle, the most prominent things are obviously the distillery name. So we have the Arran single malt,
yes.
And then immediately underneath, before you get to the age or the expression, we have our principles. You have non-chill filtered, natural colour, and where it's from.
Yeah.
So when we were doing our research into how should we present ourselves to the world, these sorts of sensibilities and principles are something that rank really highly among our sort of audience. So we thought, well, let's remind everybody that this is a natural product. It's not coloured, it's not filtered, and it has a sense of place because all of our casks that we make these days are matured on Arran.
Yeah.
So we wanted to remind everyone of that, and then at the bottom we have our age or our cask type that you see there. And did you notice the braille?
Yeah.
So of course that's a functional tool for the blind. So that says Arran single malt if you read braille. But at the same time, it's a gesture towards inclusivity, transparency. Whiskey's for everyone. So that's as much the thing as being a functional tool. It's also a gesture towards those principles.
Yeah.
So if you drink too much of it and you get blind drunk, you'll be able to tell which whiskey you're going to have next.
I was going to go down the line of a blind tasting, but I didn't know if that.
What can we expect from Arran in the near future? You have already revealed one news to us. Any others?
Did we mention the 25-year-old, did we?
No, yeah, briefly.
It's coming out in October, isn't it? October, November it's coming out.
Oh,
that's 25-year-old. And that's mainly made up of butts and puncheons.
Okay.
And it's fully matured in butts and puncheons. So butts and puncheons take a long time to mature properly.
Yeah.
Okay.
And these are actually my favourite casks for maturation. It's actually butts, the big casks.
Yeah.
So that's coming out in October, November. I think it's probably November by the time it comes over to you.
Yeah. Exciting.
But we're all seriously looking forward to that.
Yes.
Well, sounds
perfect.
I think we have to say thank you because I think we are out of time.
Yeah, 25 minutes they told us. Yeah. Not more.
It's coming to the end.
So we look forward to seeing you in Lochranza and Lag, the two of you.
We have been to Arran, to the distillery, but you only have the 2 stills then.
Yeah.
So we have visited.
You need to come and see the force.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We were there the day you released the first edition. Smugglers edition.
Yeah, the first one. That day we were there.
We were there.
First day.
What year was that?
2015, I think.
2000. When did you say?
2015 or 16. I
think it was. Well, the Devil's Punch Bowl finished in 2014, so it would have been 2015.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Yeah.
I'm like Rain Man with dates.
Okay.
So we say thank you to you guys, and a big thank you for the opportunity to interview you.
Yeah.
No, it was a pleasure.
Yeah. And maybe we will visit Arran again.
Yes. We look forward to seeing you.
Slanje.
Slanje.
Cheers.
Enjoy your whiskey, guys.
Thank you.
Have a good weekend.